You've been everybody else's first project, but when are you going to start being your own? I'm Nisha Danae, and this is I Am My First Project, where we have real and uncomfortable conversations about why you're constantly staying stuck. As a resilience coach, I'm here to show you that most people prefer to be stuck in familiar bondage than unstuck in unfamiliar growth. And if that triggers you, keep watching. So if you're tired of staying stuck, I have a 4-week program that's opening up in January 2026. You get to work with me and we get to build the life that you want to build. Click the link below and let's get to getting unstuck. For 60 days, I woke up and I begged God at 4 a.m. to please take over my mind because it was a prison that I just could not escape. So let's set it up. Age 25, 20 days before my 26th birthday, I'm gonna end that relationship with, if you watched episode 2, Steve, the healthy one, the great person. We're also gonna see, for the first time ever since I was 15, I'm gonna have no choice but to choose myself. And I don't even know what that's gonna look like, but we're gonna unpack that. And 3, we're gonna look at 60 days of reconstruction for everything. Reconstructing my mind, reconstructing my philosophies, the way I think, but also having no choice but to be comfortable with what the title of this episode is, The Loneliest Freedom. So let's start off with that relationship. So Steve, the healthy one. And if you watched episode 3, like I said, and I hope you did, you're gonna see that it was a great relationship. It was just a bad timing. And it doesn't always mean that wrong person, wrong time is a terrible thing. It just can hurt differently. It's a feeling that you really can't describe to people. You have to understand that for me, this is the first time that I'm experiencing a healthy relationship. I'm experiencing something that feels good. But little do I know that healthy and bad timing don't always go together. It was the wrong person, wrong time, regardless of how I spent it. We were 2 good people that have given everything to wrong people consistently. We were also having mirror effect, which is basically when we reflect each other's wounds. Even though we were trying to heal together, we were also causing more damage than anything. So what do I end up doing? I decide to end the relationship. I thought that I could end the relationship and we could just be friends. That's not what's gonna happen. I'm gonna end the relationship and he is going to say that that is not an option for us. Healthy doesn't always mean the right timing, and healthy doesn't always mean that you get to keep them. One thing I learned from this situation was that God was going to show me that some people are in your life for a season, not a lifetime. And it doesn't matter how good of a person they are or how good of a person you are, it just might not work. And that's okay. Like I always say, you're either a lesson or a blessing. And if you're lucky, you're gonna be both. That is how it works. The questions that I was left with is, why couldn't the healthy one work? Why did this have to end like this? And what does this now mean for me? Because there was nobody on standby. There was nobody around to help me figure it out. I had no choice but to be by myself. So the teaching moment in that lesson was, just because someone is good to you and makes you feel good and is healthy doesn't mean that they're your forever person, nor does that mean that they're the right person for you. There's a reality of being a good person, a good timing for both. But for me, it wasn't that. It was a great person, terrible timing. And what does that mean? That truth meant that it was just a bad timing for us. It was not the situation for us. And it served its lesson. It served its purpose. So do you see yourself in that situation where you're holding on to something right now, holding on to a healthy situation because it feels good on the outside, but it's really draining you or it's actually causing you more pain? It's really hurting you, sis. And you know that it's not serving the purpose that you need it to serve. But you just know in your mind that you've convinced yourself with the lies that you tell yourself, because let's be real, we lie to ourselves all the time because we are our first liar. We make it digestible to ourselves because we want to live. We make it digestible to ourselves because we want to live in the delusion that we're creating. You are the co-author of your life, and a lot of times we co-author delusions. We're trying to exist in something that we know isn't good for us. So if you see yourself holding on to something that feels healthy, but it's actually causing you more pain and more tears in the background, maybe you might want to reevaluate where you stand in that situation. So now we're going to go into that 60 days of solitude. God had no choice but to make me sit in it. So what the setup is going to be, it's just going to be me and my dog. I live by myself. I have my own apartment. I am building a business that my ex, Steve, helped me create and believed in me enough to have. So I have this weight of all these memories of this person and all these promises of what was supposed to be out of that relationship. I'm angry at God and still trying to go to church and still trying not to leave God because, again, I have this mentality that when things go wrong, I get angry at God and I want to leave. And now I have a business that has my face on it, and I'm expected to post content every day. I have no choice but to sit there and reflect on my life decisions. I have no choice but to sit there and be with myself. Because if I didn't decide to do that, I was going to see myself continue to fall backwards. And being with the person, Steve, made me want to be a better person all the way around. Not even just for that person, but for myself. And it was not something that I could handle in knowing that I didn't show up 100% for myself even after that person left. It was just something inside of me that said, yeah, nah, you get better. You get stronger. You will not be the same way somebody left you. That's the true definition of a glow up. It's not all of the mainstream external work, but the internal work. I knew that something inside of me officially cracked, that I had to do something different. So my daily routine was 4 a.m. I woke up and the first thought that came to my mind was, God, take over my mind. I didn't know anything else to say. And ashwagandha was the supplement that I was using at that time because I was in a state of depression of some sort. Not medically or anything like that, but I wasn't 100% me. I was heartbroken. I was upset and I was angry and I was pissed. And I still had a dog that relied on me. I still had my bills that needed to get paid. And I still had this business and clients that I was working with in real time. And I just was like, God, why am I building in what seems like the most broken season of my life? The broken moments are actually the moments that build you up the most. Those are the moments that you should be able to see yourself in my story. In those broken moments, are you still running from a version of you? Or are you able to sit still long enough to reflect on what happened in the last situation and learn the lesson? Because a lot of times, if we're being completely honest, we don't learn the lesson from the past situation. We just find a new place that looks prettier and we paint it to look a different color, but it's the same cycle. You can't outrun you. And again, you're in a prison that you own the keys to. So when are you gonna pick up the keys? So the morning routine is gonna continue. After that, we're gonna do morning walks with God every morning. I'm literally walking the field behind my house, about 30 minutes to an hour every morning at 4 a.m. to 5 a.m., just talking and pouring out my heart. I then go to the gym for 5 to 9 because I had no choice but to have a rhythm, a ritual, a routine, call it what you want. I had to have something that was stable, something that kept me structured because, again, I was the weapon formed against myself. And relationships were what I used for the longest time to cultivate the monster inside of me. See, everybody's always worried about monsters as a kid, the ones in their closet, or the monsters in their family, or the monsters in the world around them. But what about when you're the monster? You're the monster that you have to look out for in the mirror, and you're the monster that you have to look out for mentally every single day. I had to quiet so many voices and so many thoughts inside my mind that just didn't depict the version of me that I knew I was, didn't depict the reality that I knew was what to come. I just knew how I felt in that moment, and in that moment, I was pissed. Pissed. I was so mad at the predicaments. I was so mad at my decisions. I was so mad at the choices that I made. And I was just having no choice but to sit with every failed relationship. And that didn't feel good. And it really made me feel some type of way about what was wrong with me, what did I do wrong, and why did everybody leave me? So when you reflect on your situations and you reflect on your story and you hear what I'm just saying right now, again, This is the podcast that I need, but this is also the podcast that you need. This is the podcast that's gonna make you uncomfortable, but also make you see the things inside of you. If you think that me sitting here telling my business all day is like the best thing in the world and the best feeling, it's not. But the mission is that I know that what I'm going through is going to help somebody else because I'm bold enough to talk about it and I'm brave enough to talk about it. And I was smart enough and bold enough and I had the audacity to say that I was done being a victim. Because like I tell you all the time, you're either gonna be a victim or a victor. You can't be both. So where are you in these stories where you see yourself and you're like, dang, that is me. I haven't reflected on a relationship. I do think that's of myself. You might wanna buckle up, Buttercup, a little bit longer and join the ride because there is so much hope in the rest of this video for you to see that there is a better outcome where I turn my mess into a message and you can do the same with yours. And then the last part of the evening I still had to go to work. So I went to work and I'm floating. I'm teaching kids, I'm in people's faces, and I am showing up and nobody knows that inside I am sinking. That's kind of the hard part about being the strong friend or the friend that I can wear a mask. I actually just made a video about that recently saying, are y'all ready to take off your Halloween costumes for I actually just made a video about that recently where I said, y'all are so worried about your Halloween costumes, but every day you're wearing a mask. The mask of not being capable, the mask of delusions, the mask of limitations. You already wear a mask 365 days a year. Why are you worried about the one day a year that you're given permission to do it? But that was me. I was wearing a mask that I was okay and I was sinking. I was also wearing a mask that I needed people and I didn't. But I didn't know who I was outside of the mask. All I knew is I had to play the roles and get through every day. I was just surviving. I wasn't thriving. I was sinking. I was drowning in my own thoughts and my own things. And every day when I came home, I knew I was back to another walk with God, having to walk a dog and be responsible, and going and taking a nap because my mind was always going, always sitting with the reality of what did not work out. Sitting with the reality of my decisions and sitting with being alone. And at this time, I labeled it as loneliness, but it was solitude. God has strategically placed me in a situation that was gonna make me either one, break down and become the victim that, the world wanted me to be, and all the decisions and all the circumstances shaped for me, or two, was gonna make me look at my situation, evaluate it, and come out stronger than it. Because it wasn't something that was meant to defeat me, but it was something that I could take to learn from and be the lesson. So I had to have the patience to learn the lesson. And then my nighttime routine is gonna end with me going straight to bed at 9 o'clock. I was off my phone, prayer, journaling, meditation. I was probably meditating up to an hour a day. I was probably journaling 2 to 3 times a day. Morning walks were breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And just having no choice to be in that loneliness at that time of my thoughts and my 4 walls. And man, those 4 walls heard a lot of crying, a lot of angriness, a lot of yelling, because I was pissed. That was really just the emotion. So where do you see yourself in that? And all of this that I'm saying, where do you find your story? Whether in a relationship, are you sleeping it away, shopping it away, eating it away? Like, where do you see yourself? This isn't only about me, and I'm not the only person that has experienced this. This isn't just my story. This is so many other women's story. So what parts of my story are you taking hold of and saying, man, if they overcame this and she could pull back from this and she could learn from it, why can't I? There is no secret tool to it. It's just the idea of mindset. I just finally believed that there was a better. And I didn't know all the answers yet. I didn't know what that better was gonna look like, but I knew that I could get there. So do you believe that there's a better yet, or are you still holding on to unfamiliar bondage? So the book that's gonna save me is actually gonna be the book, Don't Believe Everything You Think. That is gonna be the book that I'm reading over these 60 days, and man, oh man. Because again, I seen it one day in Target, and I was just like, what does this even mean? Don't believe everything you think. And all I knew was my mom was in prison, and I had some way of wanting to escape it. I just didn't know how. So the teaching moment for this was, when you've been running for 10 years, my stillness felt like a punishment, but my stillness was actually a preparation. Sometimes being still is all that you need to be able to actually reflect and be self-aware of the decisions that you've been making. So now we're gonna get into the 5 senses, and I actually use this in my coaching. This is going to be how this actually ends up becoming a part of my coaching because, again, like I always say, I'm a resilience life coach, but I live what I preach. I went through it, and I came up with a strategy and a blueprint to help so many other people get through it. I don't guarantee results, I guarantee strategy, and I guarantee the idea of understanding that something is going to be unlocked. Because if you truly want to change and believe in change, there's no limitations with working with me because you have no choice now but to unlearn and unbelieve the things and the lies that you told yourself because I'm gonna expose them. So the first one is my godfather. I remember calling him because my godfather and my mentor were the 2 people that I called the most during this season. They're older than me, they have so much wisdom, and I leaned on them. But the first one that I remember him saying was, feel this, taste this, sit in this. And to be honest, I thought the man was insane. I was like, what do you mean, feel this, taste this, see this? Like, what do you, he was like, well, yeah, you gotta sit in it. You gotta be in it. And I'm like, what does that even mean? Y'all, I was confused. I was looking at him like, what are we talking about right now? But it's gonna make so much more sense when I get into unpacking what that looked like. So the first one is gonna be taste. I tasted my tears more than I tasted food. I did not have an appetite. And if I'm being honest, salt was probably the best seasoning I knew of because I was eating tears daily. I had no choice but to embrace the idea and the reality of my situation. And as much as I said, why do I feel like this? I just had to let the feelings be what they were gonna be. I stopped running from the feelings and I embraced the feelings. The tears are gonna cry, the tears are gonna come, the yelling's gonna come, but eventually it will stop. I don't know when eventually will be. I don't know how it's gonna stop, but I had told myself, eventually the tears will stop. I didn't even give myself a deadline. I didn't do the whole in 5 days, I got 5 more days to grieve this or 10 more days. I just said every time after I picked myself up, eventually these tears will stop. And they did. The next is gonna be sound. Heard myself cry in the middle of the night, listened to my heart break, listened to the agony, the pain, and the silence. And man, is silence loud, real loud. The silence of what was, the silence of loneliness, the silence of solitude. It was loud. The next is gonna be the touch. I felt the weight of my own body in bed, the cold sheets and the empty space, and the warmth of Lucy, my dog, because she was the comfort that I had to get adjusted to now because it was just me and Lucy. Next is sight. Watched myself in the mirror and I didn't even know who I was. I remember having to tell myself so many affirmations every morning of life into myself because there was nobody else to speak life into it. Words of affirmation was my love language and I was so used to getting that nourished from other people around me. But this season, between God and myself, I had no choice but to tell myself who I was and what I was. And if I'm being completely honest, the thoughts that I had in my mind weren't always the best about myself. And I had to be okay with lying, even if it didn't feel good. Were they good lies? Yes. But I did not feel the way that I spoke about myself in the mirror. And some days I was honest. Some days I was stupid. Some days I was ugly. Some days I was infuriated. Some days I was an idiot. I wasn't the kindest to myself. Wasn't the kindest at all. So do you think that's you? Are you nice to yourself? Are you kind to yourself? And if we're being completely honest, how we allow ourselves to treat ourselves is how other people treat us. I say all the time, we don't treat people how they treat us. We allow people to treat us how we treat ourselves, how we think of ourselves, how we believe of ourselves. So the reason that that man or that woman is even allowed to talk to you the way that they do is because you talk to yourself that way. Or you were raised around people that even thought that was okay to talk to you that way, and you've internalized that as the normal or the standard. So it might be time to get some understanding or get some truth or reality that maybe you're not the kindest person to yourself. maybe that's an area that you need to work on, because you cannot even fathom the idea of believing that you deserve better or can have better if you don't give yourself better. And last is gonna be smell. This one was just memories. Morning matchas, morning walks with God, nature, and my own space, my own scent. There was no scent of another person, another man, or anything like that. It was just my scent, my natural body scent. It was my morning matchas, just the familiarity of me. And it felt so foreign, but that was part of the process. So why does this even matter? That's a good question. It matters because when you're running, you're numb. It's so easy to run and be numb and not feel anything. But when you stop running, you have no choice but to sit and feel what's going on. See, that's why a lot of people like to run away from their problems and run away from their situations. Escapism is something that we all enjoy. You've been sold escapism quite a few times, because escapism is the things that you do to not face your reality by overconsumption, whether it's of food, overconsumption of relationships, overconsumption of creating content or watching content or consuming content, overconsumption of friends and the to-do list and the busyness of your life, because you don't want to have to sit with the totality of the life that you've created. And if I'm being completely honest, until you sit with that, you can't co-author anything. You can't write a book or even start to write a book on pages that you refuse to reread. You have to reread the back pages because you have to know where they pick up. Otherwise, you'll have like a Tyler Perry production. I feel like that man literally goes to sleep for like a year and then picks up the script again. That's where you create chaos in your story. So maybe it might be time to reread the pages, and that's all that requires is self-reflection, self-awareness, and the idea of, let's see what I've done with the time and the choices so far. That's it. It's just looking at the current patterns. When you're running, you feel numb, and when you stop, you feel everything. And I mean everything. Remember I told you that stillness felt like punishment, but that stillness was preparation. I had no choice but to be still, because in movement, I couldn't feel anything. I couldn't see the reality of anything. If you even think about when you're driving, yeah, you're seeing stuff, but when you sit and park your car sometimes, you can actually see the beauty of things. And I need to see the beauty and the mess of my current predicament. The 5 senses brought me back to myself. The 5 senses, as much as it was painful to go through that and have to feel, and I mean feel everything, it was what brought me back to reality. And it's actually something that they teach, especially when you're having like a panic attack or something. You do the 5 senses. You find things, you hear things, you listen to things, you name them, you call them out. It's already been backed by science. It's already been backed by psychology. But it's something that you can do in your everyday life to bring you back to where you are. I'm not gonna say it's easy, and I'm not gonna say it's not gonna expose certain things about you, but I will say that it is a starting point when you're actually ready to do the work. And as I always say, as a life coach, I don't just work with everybody. I work with people that are actually ready to be unstuck, that are tired of familiar bondage, who want to get uncomfortable and want to expose the things about them, who've done all the check boxes and all the mundane things on the outside, but they just don't know where to actually start. And a lot of times it's right here in your noggin. It's in your mind. Like, your mind is the prison. But the beautiful thing, the thing that I'm gonna keep screaming, is you have the keys. The mental prison in your mind that you have the keys to. And as long as you can remember that you have the keys, you are a victor. The minute that you don't remember that you have the keys, you are a victim, because you're in a prison without the keys. I hope that makes sense. And the last key point of this lesson, the teaching moment, is I had to experience every dimension of loneliness so I could know what it felt like and know that I never wanted to feel this broken, this loneliness, or this experience again. And that doesn't mean like life wasn't gonna hit, but I was able to identify certain patterns and certain power and certain pieces of myself that I gave into all of these relationships that made me not have a safety net of some sort. My totality was in the person that I was with. So that means every time that a person left, I lost the totality of me, versus me being complimented by the person that's in my life. And I want you to have to really sit with that. If your man was to leave you tomorrow, sis, what you gonna do? Like, let's be for real. Let me talk to you. It's me and you on this couch, like FaceTime. What would you do if they left you tomorrow? Where would you be? How would you handle it? Would you still show up? And how bad of an impact would you be? And it's not the same to say like, a heartbreak is a heartbreak. It sucks and it hurts, it's uncomfortable. But would you still know who you were as a person and just now have to shape with the idea of, okay, it didn't work out and we're not together? Or would you be completely lost because you have no identity, no hobbies, no future, no purpose outside of that relationship title? If that person has that much weight, that's a dangerous relationship. And I flag on the pole, you might want to reevaluate it. You might want to, call me. Click the link in my bio. We might need to talk a little bit. And it's okay because there is a starting point for everybody. And I meet you where you're at so that you can be somewhere else because the starting line isn't the finish line. And that's always the beautiful thing. The last teaching moment is your 5 senses will either keep you present or keep you numb. And I chose present because I actually chose to sit still and embrace the suck. And that's that. So what I actually learned in the Loneliest freedom, like some of the realizations that are gonna hit home for me. From 15 to 25, knew nothing but relationships, romantic relationships at that, okay. 2, used people as mirrors because I couldn't look at myself. And 3, the loneliest freedom is actually where my comeback is gonna begin. And that actually goes into episode 2 for me. I told you, I met God the most in my loneliness and my solitude outside the church. And I'm actually gonna meet myself in a very similar way on the couch in the broken. And that's actually where God does most of his work too, is in our brokenness, because in our weakness, he is our strength. That is going to be a big scripture for me too in that season. That in Exodus 14:14, because be still and I will fight for you. Because if I'm being honest, I didn't have any gloves or any strength to fight for myself because I was fighting myself. And that's the beautiful thing of bringing God into this journey. And that's the beautiful thing of bringing God into this journey. He was the author. I always preach that I'm the co-author of my story, but I will never talk about being the author because I didn't create me. So I had to go to the creator about me. All right. So some of the things that I'm gonna have to define is being alone versus being in solitude. And that's a mental thing. And sometimes we confuse the two. Loneliness says I need someone. Solitude says I'm learning to be whole. I had to learn the difference. And that was a very uncomfortable lesson because they both felt the same to me. I didn't see that one was preparing me for something greater while the other one was suffocating the life out of me. It didn't feel different. They both felt dark. They both felt alone. They both felt without people. And they both required me to have to sit with my own thoughts. Nobody wants to do that. When is the last time that you saw yourself or intentionally had yourself sit with yourself? Like just had a moment to yourself. No phone, no music, just in solitude. Most people can't even be alone for 5 to 10 minutes without anything. Like driving in their car, people are either on their phone, listening to music, talking. We always are constantly being stimulated. But sometimes it's the quietness that is the loudest for us. But those are also the moments where you have no choice but to reflect and just be lost in your thoughts and just be lost in the season of life you're in. Because again, you can't create a story or co-author a life for a story that you refuse to reread. And to reread your story, you have to be aware. You have to have reflection. And you have to have moments to reflect, which requires some level of solitude. My mind was my weapon is going to be another realization in this time. Every negative thought was a key to my own prison. I told you I wasn't the nicest to myself and I didn't think all the best thoughts. I also was very upset about the relationship ending and I was not the happiest even about the marriage ending too. It was a moment of me kind of reflecting a lot of relationships, a lot of things. Why did I allow this to happen? Why did I move on so fast? Why did I let this person come into my life? Why did they lie to me? Why did they make these promises? Again, y'all, I said 3 different engagement rings. It was Like, people kept dangling marriage and this life, and it sucked. It sucked because I had these promises. I had all the messages, all the voice notes, the songs, the trips, all the things that this person did around this place, apartment, and they were not there. We didn't get to share those moments and enjoy them together. And it just didn't feel that great. So God had to take over my mind because I couldn't trust myself. Like, the only thing I had was God. And if I'm being completely honest, the ex is the person that even made me go back to God. Because after the divorce, I had wanted nothing to do with God. I left God. I was angry. I said I had another failed marriage. My parents had a failed marriage in my mind growing up. So why is this a constant battle? Why did I not break a generational curse? Why did you lie to me, God? Why did you allow me to be embarrassed? And I am sitting here asking God, why? Like, why? But all I knew is if anybody else was going to do it, he was going to have to do it, because I didn't have the answers. I didn't know. So the only thing that I could say at that moment in the beginning of that time was, God, take over my mind. Eventually, it was going to be, God, help me learn to date myself. God, date me. God, show me how much you love me. Like, that one was a very powerful prayer too. If you ever need to know how much God loves you, just ask him. That was my prayer for a very long time. I believe in the power of prayer, and I believe in sometimes it's just so simple. And sometimes it's the same repeated prayer over and over. God, show me how good life can get. God, take over my mind. God, figure this out for me. God, give me the answer. God, I need understanding. Whatever I needed, I was just going to ask. And I didn't care if I sounded like a broken record on repeat. God was going to hear from me every day, because the Bible said he was my daughter, and I'm searching for something, and I didn't have the answers. And no man on earth was allowed to do anything for me, because he put me in solitude. Nor did I have like the community aspect yet. I had no choice but to rely on him. And he made sure of that. And I'm glad he did, because I found my identity in him, so that I also could find the identity in community when he's gonna release me from solitude later. Mental reconstruction felt like mental surrender. I had no choice but to mentally surrender where I was. Surrender my position, surrender my thoughts, surrender how I felt about everything around me. I just had to surrender. At that point, I said, you know what? This isn't my understanding anymore. This isn't my problem anymore. God, figure it out. That was literally how we get into, God, show me how good life can get, because I don't have the answer. You gave me these plans. You gave me this vision. You gave me free will. And I did all of these things with it. I repent. I'm sorry. But I don't have it. I don't have the answers, and I don't have it together. So if you want me to continue on this purpose, if you want me to continue this business, if you want me to continue anything that you've given me, I need help. And he's going to give me that. Once I surrendered and said yes to his way, yes to his will, yes to his understanding, I had no choice but now to have a different thought process. And man, oh man, how good mental freedom feels. So I'm also building while breaking. I started selfishly growing in this season in the content creation way. Again, the last relationship, Steve, helped me build the business, and we started it in January, February. I got clients I'm working with already. But now I'm in real life having to expose my life. I'm on Instagram telling people about this season, telling them about this journey, making content around it. I'm going to the gym every morning. I'm doing my morning walks, my relationship with my dog, my naps, my praise, my worship, my journaling. All in real time, while I am secretly hating life right now, secretly questioning why God even created me again, and secretly wondering what the hell did I put myself into, and why the hell is this my story? Why is this even a part of the journey right now? Why is this even allowed right now? And man, oh man, is it beautiful to have a message out of a mess, to be able to see the outcome now. To have a business and help so many women now is such a beautiful thing. And it's a moment that I even have to reflect on, because I'm not where I was. And I hope that I'm a testament to that, because I am a life coach that lives what I preach, but I also live it in real time. Life coaching is living life. And I don't just show the good, I show all of it. And I'm on this couch right now exposing my business week after week with every episode, and day after day of every content that I post. People are in my life wondering what's happening in Nisha's world, and I'm showing it because it's a part of the journey. It's a part of the credibility. It's a part of understanding who I am, where I've come from, and the origin behind it. And it's the part that is the most vulnerable and raw about me. And sometimes it's the most uncomfortable. But I have this mission, right? This idea that I know that as much as I keep preaching, as much as I keep talking about my story, I'm helping somebody. And even if it's only one woman, one person, it's fine. But I am glad to know that I'm helping so many, thousands, hundreds. The community that I've shaped has been so beautiful. And I'm so, so glad that so many women have trusted to work with me and trusted to even be friends with me and collaborate with me and join me on my journey. The Loneliest Freedom is the name of this episode. And the Loneliest Freedom is such an interesting title. But freedom is what I wanted to be my own, what I wanted to create outside of any relationship or any title. That was mine. Loneliness is what I didn't expect, the cost of growth, that uncomfortable, and I do mean very, very, very uncomfortable journey and uncomfortable path. It's the thing you have to go into. So you don't grow in comfort. That's not how this works. Unfortunately, comfort doesn't grow you. It doesn't stretch you. It doesn't require you to evolve. It doesn't require you to shape yourself into who you need to be because you're already in a mold when you're comfortable. Uncomfortability stretches you, and it makes you have to face who you are in the current and have this idea of who you can be. Because comfort feels good. Comfort feels safe. But comfort doesn't get you to the healthier or the better version of yourself. But both of them had to come together. What I needed to become my own first project is going to be the Loneliest Freedom. I had to have the loneliest part of my life in solitude, but I had to want freedom for once outside of a relationship. And it's a part of the story. It is why I am my first project. It is the foundation and the origin of a lot of things for me. And as much as it sucks, or did suck at that moment, and as much as it hurt, and I mean, I tasted so many tears and screamed into a pillow for so many nights and was in a bed that was cold and lonely for so many days, I'm glad it happened. And you can be glad that it happened for you too. You don't have to stay in that cycle forever, because I didn't. I had in my days where it lasted and felt like forever, but I also got to taste what freedom tastes. But I also got to taste what freedom tastes like. I live in freedom now. In real life, I create the life that I want and the life that I have. And I don't sell perfection. That's not even a part of the journey. But peace and authenticity, having values that mean something to you and making sure that your life aligns with that, that's what I offer. It's making sure that you cultivate an environment that feels safe for you and you get to stay true to who you are, no matter who comes into your life. So the turning point. After 60 days, something shifted. I wasn't healed, but I was honest. I was honest with who I was. I had exposed every lie that I told myself. The good, the bad, the reality. I called everything out for what it was. And I had to reshape the reality or the story that I had been cultivating inside of my mind. I wasn't whole, but I was willing. I was willing to do the hard work. I was willing to look at the reality of it. I was willing to expose the truth. And I was willing to continue the process, continue the journey. No matter how much it was, I was willing to keep moving forward. And I wasn't ready, but I was rebuilding. Not only was I rebuilding myself, but God also allowed me to rebuild my baby, which is my business, Selfishly Growing. He allowed me to take a story and take a purpose and take a journey and take loneliness and cultivate something so beautiful. But he also gave me a testimony out of it, something that I was going to end up needing to help other people. Because one of my clients was living the same story that I was, but just in a little bit of a different time frame. And so I'm glad that I went through it because I was able to help her through hers. So I got some questions, as always, that I'm going to leave you with. You know what? Let me look at you. All right, back to that FaceTime again. We're having that conversation. I want you to reflect on these questions. You can journal about them. You can have a conversation with yourself. If you really want to challenge yourself, look in the mirror when you answer these. Got to look at you, and be honest with yourself. Don't be your first liar, because a lot of times we are. So question number 1. Okay. What are you running from? Wait. Okay. Sorry. Question number 1 is, what are you running from by staying attached? 2, who would you be if you weren't defined by relationship? 3, what would change if you chose unfamiliar growth over familiar bondage? And 4, when are you gonna stop running and sit still? The hard truth is, if being alone scares you more than being in bad relationships, that's exactly why you need to be alone. You just need to be alone. You can't find yourself in someone else's mirror, so it's time for you to look in the mirror and have that conversation. So if you're tired of being stuck and being in familiar bondage and just being in a mental prison that you have the keys to, you should work with me. November 4th, the first Tuesday of November, I have 15 slots for 15 amazing women with an application, of course, because I don't work with everybody, because I'm not for everybody, that actually want to break out of this prison, who actually want to find where their keys are. It's $997 investment, but you have spent more on escaping with vacations and shopping sprees and gluttony and nails and all of these things that don't even benefit you. Your gym membership that you don't go to, the vacations that you keep going on with your friends, and you're still waking up lonely. You're still waking up trapped. You're still waking up stuck. And you don't know what the next step is. You should make that investment, because this is not an investment for just here and now. This is an investment for strategy and a thought process that will save you years, because we've done the therapy, we've done the work. These are for women that have already checked off all the boxes. You just now need to know that there is a program out there, there's a coach out there that has lived it, and they're not in that prison. The prison that you've been in for years can be unwritten and can be cultivated into freedom, because that is what Mind Rescue offers. It's a coaching program full of community and women and empowerment and people that are said, I'm tired of being stuck and I'm tired of the prison. Show me the keys, hand them to me. I'm gonna be victorious. I don't know who I was before those 60 days, but I do know who I'm becoming now. And if I'm being completely honest, that terrifies me. Terrifies me because who she is and who she can be is so much bigger than what was before. I found me in so many ways, but I'm also meeting me for the first time. And that's exactly what I'm gonna keep doing. I'm gonna keep searching for who Nisha Danae is. So as always, thank you for watching I Am My First Project. This was the Loneliest Freedom. Thanks.